I, Marcus Jackson, worked my ass off to get this house. As I drove down the oak-shaded road leading into Willow Creek, an upscale neighborhood in the suburbs of Fairview, Oregon, I felt like every drop of sweat was worth it. Red brick houses lined both sides, lawns neatly trimmed, white picket fences peeking through. This was the place I'd always dreamed of. The small house, gray-tiled roof, with a spacious garage on the side, that was the fruit of years spent hunched over in the mechanic shop, hands stained with grease, saving every penny. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I savored the peace it brought. Living in a meticulously kept neighborhood like Willow Creek, the garage was what I cherished most. It was bigger than I'd imagined, with room for the 1967 Mustang I was fixing up, a workbench, and shelves of tools I'd organized neatly. I pictured myself spending hours there, radio on, music blending with the clank of a wrench against the engine. It was a place to forget the struggling days of the past, a little corner all my own. Lately, I started noticing something strange. It wasn't obvious at first, just small details that made me frown. One night, as I lay on the sofa with a book in hand, I heard an odd noise from the garage, like wood being dragged, faint but enough to make me sit up and listen. I went to check, flashlight on, but saw nothing except the silent Mustang in shadows. Probably just the wind, I told myself, trying to shake off the unease. But a few days later, when I went to the garage for a wrench, I noticed some old wooden crates, ones I hadn't touched since moving in, had been disturbed. One was shifted out of place, lid slightly ajar, as if someone had rummaged through and hastily set it back. At first I tried to ignore it. I thought maybe I was imagining things, or it was just a stray cat prowling around. Probably just me being paranoid, I muttered, standing in the garage, hands on hips, looking around. But it kept happening. Soft noises at night, faint tire marks on the floor that didn't match my Mustang. I couldn't brush it off anymore. I suspected someone had been sneaking in, though I couldn't figure out why. The garage was mine. I didn't let anyone use it, but something was clearly off. I stood there, staring at the door with its loose old latch, and decided I had to do something. I went to the nearby hardware store, bought a new lock, sturdy, shiny, with a double key. As I installed it on the garage door, I felt a bit more at ease. Now no one's getting in, I said to myself, sliding the key in, hearing the crisp click. The next day, I was standing on the porch, sipping hot coffee, enjoying a rare moment of calm after days of suspicion. The smell of coffee mixed with the cool air felt comforting, like things were settling down. I just put the new lock on the garage the night before, and I figured, at least for now, I could relax a bit. But then I heard heavy footsteps stomping up the path to my yard. I looked up, and that's when I first truly met Helen Baxter. She marched straight across my lawn without knocking or greeting, like it was her own damn yard. Helen Baxter was a middle-aged woman, brown hair meticulously dyed, wearing an expensive sweater and oversized sunglasses. She had that arrogant look I'd seen on a few folks in my old neighborhood, the kind that says they own the world, and I'm just a temporary renter. She stopped in front of me, hands on hips, and didn't beat around the bush. "Did you lock the garage?" she snapped, voice sharp as a blade, eyes narrowing behind her shades. I set my coffee down, a little taken aback. I'd barely spoken to her since moving to Willow Creek, just seen her standing on her porch across the street, staring over a few times. "Yeah, I locked it," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Why?" I couldn't figure out why she cared about my garage, but the way she stood there, like I'd committed some grand crime, rubbed me the wrong way. Helen's face flushed red, like I'd just slapped her. She crossed her arms, chin jutting up. "Because I can't get in anymore," she barked. "I've been using that garage for months, and now I can't get my stuff. What the hell are you doing?" I stood there, stunned, unable to believe what I just heard. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She flat out admitted to trespassing on my property, like it was her God-given right. "Wait a sec," I said, raising an eyebrow. "You're saying you've been using my garage?" I stepped down one stair from the porch, looking her dead in the eye. "You've been trespassing on my property." Helen snorted, like my question was the dumbest thing she'd ever heard. "Don't make a big deal out of it," she snapped. "It's just a garage. People like you always blow little things out of proportion. It's not like it's costing you anything." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. The coffee scent still lingered, but it didn't soothe me anymore. "It's my garage," I said slowly, emphasizing each word. "I paid for this house, and I don't owe you access to it." I couldn't believe her nerve. She stood there, staring at me like I was the unreasonable one, like I should apologize for locking my own damn property. For Helen, That was the last straw. Her face twisted with rage, eyes blazing with fury. She pointed a finger at me, voice trembling with anger. "Oh, I get it," she hissed. "You don't belong in this neighborhood, and now you're pulling some power trip on the people who actually live here. I won't let this slide." I stood there, unsure how to react. She just openly admitted to trespassing, then turned it around to accuse me like I was the bad guy. I shook my head, keeping my voice even. "Say what you want straight up, but don't come onto my yard making demands like that." Helen didn't answer right away. She stepped back, pulled her phone from her pocket, and gave me a wicked smirk. "You'll see," she said, voice icy. "I'm calling the cops. They'll deal with you." I stood there, watching her dial, unable to believe this was happening. "You serious?" I asked, a hint of disbelief in my tone. Helen didn't look at me, just held up a hand to silence me, like I was some naughty kid who needed scolding. I heard the phone ring on speaker, then a flat voice from the other end. 911. "What's your emergency?" Helen switched gears instantly. Her voice quivered, faking panic, like she was the victim in some bad movie. "I need help," she cried, shooting me a triumphant glance. "There's a suspicious man in my neighborhood. He's threatening me, harassing me right now. I don't feel safe." I shook my head, unable to believe what I was hearing. She was making it up right in front of me, and the way she played it made me both mad and amused. "What's your address?" the dispatcher asked. Helen rattled off my address, not hers, like it was her personal stage. "Please hurry," she added, voice cracking like she was about to cry. When she hung up, she turned to me, lips pressed into a tight line. "You'll see," she said coldly. "The cops will handle you. You don't know who you've messed with." I stood there, looking at her, saying nothing. She thought I'd panic, beg her to call it off, but I wasn't about to. I took a deep breath, trying to stay cool. Old memories flooded back. Times I'd been pulled over by cops just for driving through a wrong neighborhood. Times I'd been asked, "What are you doing here?" just for waiting at a bus stop. I knew Helen's game wasn't new. She thought she could wield her privilege like a weapon. That one call would automatically make me the villain. But this time, I wasn't letting her win. If she wanted the cops, I'd let them come. I was just curious how deep a hole she'd dig herself. Helen stood there, arms crossed, staring at me with smug satisfaction. She didn't leave, like she wanted to make sure I didn't bolt before the cops showed up. I set my coffee on the porch railing, crossed my arms, and stared right back. "What do you think the cops will do when they find out you've been trespassing?" I asked, voice steady. Helen huffed. "They won't believe you," she snapped. "You're the new guy here. I've lived in Willow Creek my whole life. Who do you think they'll listen to?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to argue with her anymore. She'd admitted to using my garage, and now she was trying to paint me as the criminal just for stopping her. I wondered why she was so desperate. If she just wanted her stuff, why not ask nicely? But the way she acted, arrogant, entitled, and now calling the cops, made me suspect something bigger was behind this. The sound of police sirens still echoed in my head as I stepped off the porch, leaving Helen standing there with her smug look. She thought she had the upper hand, that the cops would swoop in and squash me like a bug, but I wasn't about to stand around like a sitting duck. If she was bold enough to call the police over me locking my garage, there had to be something in there she didn't want me to find. I needed the truth before this went any further. I turned back into the house, shut the door, and headed straight to the garage. I slid the new key into the lock, hearing the click as it opened. The door creaked as I pushed it up, revealing the space inside. My 1967 Mustang sat quietly under the dim ceiling light. Old wooden crates stacked in the corner, and the workbench covered in tools. I shut the door behind me, not wanting Helen or anyone else to see me digging around. I took a deep breath, the smell of motor oil and old wood hitting me, then started searching. If something was off, I'd find it. I turned to the wooden crates I'd noticed before. They weren't mine, probably left by the previous owner, but now I was sure someone had messed with them. I pulled the nearest one out from the corner, the wooden lid clacking as I opened it. Inside wasn't junk, or random crap like I'd expected. I found some old electrical cords, a scratched-up drill, and a small plastic bag with electronic parts I didn't recognize right away. "What the hell is this?" I muttered, frowning. I dug deeper, and my heart pounded when I found a small box holding a few old phones, the cheap disposable kind people call burners. I set the box aside, and pulled out the second crate. This time, I found a heavy canvas bag. When I opened it, I nearly dropped it. Inside was cash, stacks of dollars neatly bundled with rubber bands. I didn't count, but it had to be thousands. "Jesus," I whispered, a chill running down my spine. This wasn't mine, and I started piecing things together. Helen had said she'd been using my garage for months. Could this be what she left here? I set the bag down, hands shaking slightly, and kept digging. The third crate was even weirder. I found an old leather notebook, smudged with ink. I flipped it open, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Inside were handwritten entries, logging transactions, dates, amounts, and initials like TR or HB. I stopped when I saw HB, over and over. Helen Baxter, no doubt. One line read, HB, $500, delivery Friday. Another, TR, $1,200, via HB. I flipped faster, finding a long list of items. 42-inch TV, gaming console, gold watch, like a ledger for stolen goods. My stomach twisted. But there was more. Tucked in the corner of the crate was a small black USB drive, wedged between some packing paper. I picked it up, my hands shaking for real now. I ran inside, grabbed my laptop from the living room, and plugged the USB in. When the screen opened a folder full of messages, I could barely breathe. They were chats between Helen and someone named Tommy, probably TR from the notebook. One message read, "New stuff in yet, need it delivered by Saturday." Helen replied, "Stashed in the garage, don't let anyone see." Another, "Watch out for the new guy who moved in, he can't know." Reading it, I felt the blood rush to my head. She wasn't just using my garage, she was using it to hide illegal shit. I leaned back against the workbench, trying to process it all. The noises at night, the disturbed crates, the tire marks on the floor, it all made sense. Helen wasn't just trespassing, she was running something dirty right under my nose, probably thinking I'd never catch on. I found one more message that gave me chills. "Wipe any traces if there's trouble. Leave nothing in the garage." I quickly took screenshots with my phone, saving everything to a separate folder. If the cops came, I'd show them, not just to defend myself, but to expose her. The police siren cut through the midday air, growing louder, as I stepped out of the garage, still clutching the USB in my pocket. I just uncovered a pile of evidence. Cash, the notebook, messages between Helen and some guy named Tommy. And now I knew I wasn't just dealing with an arrogant neighbor. Helen was using my garage for something dirty, and she'd called the cops to intimidate me. I walked into the yard, shut the garage door, and stood on the porch as the patrol car pulled up to the driveway. Two officers stepped out. The first was Daniel Brooks, a tall black man with a calm face and sharp eyes. The second was Ryan Carter, shorter, white, stocky, with an unreadable expression. They wore dark blue uniforms, badges gleaming, and approached me with slow, deliberate steps. Helen was still there, a few feet away, arms crossed, her triumphant look screaming she'd just won a big hand. I glanced at her, then turned to the officers, keeping my voice steady. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, and I had proof in my hands. Helen didn't let me speak first. She lunged toward them, her voice quivering with fake distress, hands flailing dramatically. "Thank God you're here," she cried, like she'd just escaped an assault. "This man," she pointed at me, her finger trembling over the top. "He locked my garage, won't let me get my stuff. I think he's hiding something shady in there. I don't feel safe anymore." I stood there, watching her perform, unable to believe her gall. She just claimed my garage, as hers, like I was the intruder. Daniel Brooks frowned, glancing at me, then back at Helen. "Calm down, ma'am," he said, voice low and even. "Start from the beginning. What happened?" Helen took a long dramatic breath, pretending to hold back tears. "I was just at home, minding my own business, when suddenly I couldn't get into the garage anymore," she began, voice shaking. "I found out he locked it. When I asked, he got aggressive, threatened me. I had to call you before he did something worse." She shot me a look, her eyes gleaming with smugness. Ryan Carter glanced at me, hand resting lightly on the notepad at his belt. I stood there, arms crossed, not looking remotely aggressive. Honestly, I almost wanted to laugh at her ridiculous story. "Sir," Daniel said, turning to me, voice still calm. "What do you have to say?" I exhaled, stepped down one stair from the porch, and looked him in the eye. "She's been trespassing on my property for months," I said, voice clear. "This is my garage and my house. I locked it this morning because I don't want her in there anymore. When I refused to open it, she flipped out and called you." Daniel nodded slightly, jotting something down, while Ryan let out a short, skeptical laugh. "Hold up," Ryan said, looking at Helen, then me. "She called the cops because you locked your own garage." He shook his head, like he couldn't believe it. Helen whirled on Ryan, face flushing red. "It's not just that," she yelled. "He's doing something shady in there. You need to check it now, before it's too late." She pointed at the garage, voice shrill, like I was some dangerous criminal. I looked at her, then turned to Daniel. If you want to check, I don't mind, I said, voice even. But I can prove she's been using my garage without permission. Daniel and Ryan exchanged a look. I could see the doubt in their eyes, not about me, but about Helen's story. It was full of holes, and her over-the-top acting only made it worse. All right, Daniel said, nodding at me. We'll take a look. You got anything to show us? I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. Yeah, I said, hand still gripping the USB in my pocket. I've got proof. Helen stood there, the smug smile on her face starting to fade. I took a deep breath, and nodded at Daniel. Follow me, I said, voice firm. I'll show you. I led them into the house, through the living room, and out the back door to the garage. Helen trailed behind, no longer yelling, but I could feel her tension. She stood near the door, arms crossed tight, like a cornered animal. I opened the garage door, flipped on the light, and pointed to the wooden crates in the corner. I found this stuff, after she freaked out about me locking the door. I started, voice steady. She said she's been using my garage for months, and this is what I discovered. Daniel and Ryan stepped in, looking around. I pulled the first crate out, opened the lid, and pointed to the stuff inside. Coiled wires, an old drill, and a bag of electronic parts. This isn't mine, I said, looking at Daniel. I never touched these crates since moving in, but someone's clearly been using them. Ryan frowned, bending down to look, while Daniel scribbled in his notepad. I kept going, pulling out the second crate, and lifting the bag of cash. And this, I said, holding it up for them to see. Thousands of dollars, bundled up neat. I don't keep money like this in my garage. Helen let out a sharp yelp, voice high-pitched. He's lying, she screamed, pointing at me. That stuff's not mine. He planted it to frame me. I didn't even turn to look at her. I kept my eyes on Daniel, who watched calmly. She's right about one thing, I went on. I don't know exactly who this belongs to, but I've got this. I pulled the leather notebook from the third crate, opened it to a page with HB written on it. This is a transaction log. The initials, HB, are all over it. Helen Baxter. You can check the handwriting if you want. Daniel took the notebook from me, flipping through a few pages, his eyes narrowing as he read. Ryan stood up, looking at Helen. You got anything to say? He asked, voice skeptical. Helen opened her mouth, then shut it, like a fish out of water. That's not mine, she stammered. He faked it. He's a con artist. I shook my head, pulling the USB from my pocket. What about this? I said, holding it up. Found it in the crate. I checked it. Messages between Helen and some guy named Tommy about stashing stuff in my garage. I plugged the USB into the laptop I'd brought out from the living room. Opening the message folder, I pointed at the screen, where the text read clear as day. New stuff in yet, needed delivered by Saturday. And the reply, stashed in the garage. Don't let anyone see. I turned to Daniel. She used my garage to store stuff, maybe stolen goods. I'm not sure, but she knew I was new here, and she didn't want me finding out. Ryan leaned in to look at the screen, letting out a low whistle. Jesus, he said, shaking his head. Helen was full on panicking now. That's not mine, she screamed, voice breaking. He's making it up. Don't you see? He's a liar. I finally turned to her, my voice cold. You used my garage. Helen, you admitted it to my face this morning. Everything here ties back to you. Daniel crossed his arms, looking at Helen. So you've been entering his garage without permission? He asked, voice low. And now you're saying he faked all this? Helen's mouth gaped, no answer coming out. She stepped back, eyes darting like she was looking for an exit. I watched her, my anger shifting to satisfaction. You called the cops to scare me, I said, voice slow. But all you did was lead them straight to your mess. Daniel nodded, glancing at Ryan. I think we need to dig deeper, he said. Ryan nodded back, his eyes hardening as he looked at Helen. Helen stood near the door, face pale, hands clenched like she was clinging to her last shred of control. I just exposed her, and the look in her eyes wasn't smug anymore. It was panic, mixed with a rage I'd never seen. I knew she was crumbling, but I didn't expect her to lose it so fast. Daniel crossed his arms, staring at Helen with a stern look. Miss Baxter, this isn't looking good for you, he said, voice low, but firm. You entered his garage without permission, and now we've got evidence of shady activity. Ryan nodded, adding, yeah, I think we need to dig deeper into what else you're hiding. Helen stepped back, eyes darting like a trapped animal. No, she screamed, voice cracking. You can't do this. He's the criminal. He set me up to ruin me. I looked at her, my anger turning to exhaustion. You called the cops here, Helen, I said, voice slow. You thought I'd back down, but all you did was dig your own grave. That was her breaking point. Her face twisted in fury, eyes blazing red with anger. You liar, she roared, lunging straight at me. I didn't have time to react. She swung her hand, sharp nails aimed at my face. I raised an arm to block, but before she could touch me, Ryan moved lightning fast, grabbing her wrist and twisting it behind her back. Enough, Ryan barked, holding her tight. Helen thrashed like a wild animal, hair flying, mouth spewing incoherent yells. Let me go. He's the criminal. You don't get it. I stood there, heart pounding, watching her lose all reason. I'd figured she'd react hard, but I didn't think she'd be this reckless in front of cops. Ryan gripped tighter, trying to keep her still, but Helen wouldn't stop. She turned to Daniel, eyes full of hate, and then did something I'd never forget. She spat right in Daniel's face. A wet thwack echoed in the tight garage space, and both Ryan and I froze. The spit hit Daniel's cheek, dripping down his chin. The air went still. My stomach churned, not from fear, but disgust. Daniel stood there, unmoving, slowly wiping his face. His eyes darkened, jaw clenched, but he didn't speak right away. Ryan loosened his grip on Helen for a split second from shock, and she seized the moment to spin around, yelling, I'm the victim. You can't trust a guy like him over me. I'm white. You're supposed to protect me. I stared at her, disgust boiling up. She'd not only attacked me, but spat in Daniel's face, and now she was trying to use her race as a shield. Daniel finally spoke, voice like ice. You just made this a whole lot worse, he said, pulling handcuffs from his belt. Helen Baxter, you're under arrest for assaulting an officer, trespassing, and suspected involvement in illegal activity. He stepped forward, cuffing her as she thrashed wildly. No, no, Helen screamed, kicking frantically as Daniel and Ryan held her. You can't do this. I'm the victim. Let me go. She turned to me, eyes bloodshot. You'll pay for this, you bastard. I stood there, unmoving, watching her get dragged out of the garage. Her screams still rang out, cutting through the car's windows, but now they were just meaningless, feeble noise. Let me go. You can't do this, she howled, banging on the door, but no one cared. I crossed my arms, relief washing over me as the patrol car pulled away, taking her out of Willow Creek. She'd destroyed herself, and I just had to stand there to watch the consequences crash down on her. Daniel came back to me, wiping his hand on his shirt like he wanted to erase the whole incident. We'll search her house, he said, voice low. With what you gave us, cash, notebook, USB, plus her assaulting me, she's not getting out of this. Ryan nodded, glancing down the road where the patrol car had disappeared. She didn't know when to quit, he said, voice dry. Called the cops, and shot herself in the foot. I nodded, handing over the laptop and the rest of the evidence. Take it all, I said. I just want this over. Word spread like wildfire in Willow Creek. Within a day, neighbors started whispering. I heard them over the fence. Helen got arrested. She was hiding stolen stuff in the new guy's garage. She spat in a cop's face. Really? A few even recorded her being hauled off, and the clip went viral around the neighborhood. I didn't care much for the gossip, but I knew one thing. Helen's reputation was dust. She'd once been a big voice here, ran the neighborhood council, but now she was just a criminal in everyone's eyes. The police searched Helen's house that afternoon. I stood on my porch, watching them carry out boxes, more cash, some unboxed TVs, and a small safe I figured held shady paperwork. A neighbor, an old guy who waters his plants, came over and asked, "What happened, buddy?" I shrugged, keeping it short. She used my garage to stash illegal stuff. I just locked it up. He shook his head, walked off, and I saw him muttering to someone else. Soon enough, the whole neighborhood knew. The Willow Creek Council held an emergency meeting that week. I didn't attend, but I heard it was a quick decision. Helen Baxter was expelled from the neighborhood. Her house, the pride she once bragged about, was seized to cover legal debts. A neighbor told me she owed a mountain of lawyer fees, and with no one in the area stepping up to help, it went to auction. I wasn't planning to bid, but when the price dropped ridiculously low, I thought, why not? I won it cheap, and decided to turn it into an extension of my own place. My garage isn't just for fixing cars anymore. I started transforming it into a small workshop for the neighborhood, a spot where kids could come learn how to take apart engines. The neighbors started warming up to me. A few who once eyed me suspiciously now nodded hello as they passed by. An old lady a few houses down even brought over a plate of cookies, saying, "Thanks for cleaning the trash out of our neighborhood." I smiled, took the cookies, and felt a little warmth. As for Helen, word is she's locked up awaiting trial for assaulting an officer, trespassing, and dealing stolen goods. With the evidence I handed over, plus what the cops found in her house, she's got no way out. I don't know how long she'll sit in jail, and I don't care much. She chose her path, and I just happened to be the one who sent her tumbling down it. Standing on my porch, looking at her old house now mine, I only thought one thing. Justice sometimes comes slow, but it always arrives on time. My 1967 Mustang, fully restored, sits in the garage, its red paint gleaming under the new lights I installed. No more strange noises at night, no more tampered crates, and most importantly, no more Helen Baxter storming into my yard like she owned the place. I've reclaimed my space, and more than that, I've found a place to call home. The whole mess with Helen is just a memory now. After she was arrested, booted from Willow Creek, and her house fell into my hands at auction, the neighborhood felt like it shed a weight. I didn't keep her place to live in. I turned it into an extension of my own, linking it to the garage to make a small workshop. I added a few workbenches, hung tools on the walls, and opened it up for the neighborhood kids to learn car repair. A boy named Jake, who lives a few houses down, became my assistant, always eager to ask about oil changes or spark plug tweaks. I laugh every time I see him covered in grease, and I realize I'm not just fixing cars, I'm building something bigger. The neighbors see me differently now. Those wary looks from when I first moved in are gone. Instead, I get friendly nods, quick hellos when I walk the street. One afternoon, the cookie lady, Mrs. Mary from number 12, stood at my door, smiling. "I used to think Helen was good people," she said, her voice shaky with age. "I'm sorry I didn't welcome you better." I took the plate, smiled back and said, "It's all right, Mrs. Mary, I get it." She nodded, shuffled off, and I felt a warmth inside. Not everyone apologized like her, but through their actions, a wave, a check-in, I knew I'd been accepted. My phone buzzes now and then, with texts from friends. An old buddy, Tony, messaged, "Man, you're a legend." She really thought she could outsmart you. I laughed, typed back. She didn't know she picked the wrong guy. Tony sent a big laugh emoji, and I set the phone down, looking out at Willow Creek's quiet street. Helen thought she was untouchable, that her privilege could crush me. She was wrong, and now I'm the one sitting here, enjoying a peace she'll never have. I catch bits about Helen through neighbors. She's awaiting trial, facing charges, assaulting an officer, trespassing, dealing stolen goods. With the evidence from my garage and what the cops found at her place, she's done for. Someone said she screamed in her cell, demanding a lawyer, but no one in Willow Creek would help. I don't care much about her fate anymore. She chose that road, and I just happened to shove her off it. Justice did its job, and I'm good with that. As the sun sets, I get up, step into the garage. The lights blaze, shining on the Mustang and the workbenches I just set up. I flip on the radio, soft jazz filling the air, mixing with the faint smell of motor oil. I pick up a wrench, twirl it in my hand and smile. This is my space. No more intruders. No more threats. I fought for it, and now I can enjoy it my way. I step out to sit on the porch, watching Willow Creek's red brick houses fade into the dark. I take a deep breath, feeling the stillness around me. Helen thought I didn't belong here, but now I'm part of this place, more than she ever dreamed. I sip the last of my coffee, set the mug on the railing and tell myself, she was wrong, and I proved it. It's a good day. No, a good life. And for the first time in a long while, I feel like I truly belong. The story Karen alerts police. When new neighbor locks his own garage, she had no hint what he discovered. Reflects many real aspects of life in the US today, especially around racism, privilege, and community justice. Marcus Jackson, a black man, moves into upscale Willow Creek and faces Helen Baxter, an arrogant white woman who used his garage for illegal dealings. Helen calls the cops to scare Marcus, but ends up exposing her own crimes from stolen goods to assaulting Officer Daniel Brooks. It ends with Marcus reclaiming peace, turning his garage into a community workshop, and earning neighbors' respect, while Helen loses everything. This isn't just fiction. It mirrors social tensions still alive in America, where racial bias can spark conflict, but persistence and truth can bring justice. The story's lessons are specific and practical for real life in the US. First, like Marcus staying calm and gathering evidence, cache, notebook, USB, rely on facts and reason over emotions when facing injustice. Helen leaned on her privilege, thinking the cops would side with her, but Marcus's resolve turned the tables. Second, his turning the garage into a community space shows the power of building positive ties. instead of revenge. He contributed, winning over neighbors like Mrs. Mary. Finally, Helen's downfall reminds us that abusing power or prejudice has consequences. No one's untouchable. In real life, be patient, gather proof and trust justice, slow as it may be, will come, like Marcus proved, sipping coffee on his porch, savoring his win. If you enjoyed Marcus's journey against Helen to reclaim his peace, hit subscribe so you don't miss more gripping, lesson-packed stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, where we'll uncover more unexpected secrets.